We are live. Welcome to my video. This is going to be an overall review with no spoilers other than possibly Star Wars leading up to, not including the first entry of, I don't know if anybody else is calling it this, but I will be referring to it as Star Wars Tales. So this will entail, not proud of that one, Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, and Tales of the Underworld. Now, Tales of the Jedi came out in 2022, so yeah, anything Star Wars that came out before that, maybe I'll spoil, haven't decided yet, but no spoilers for these three. It is possible that there will be more than these three. Right now it's unclear. Disney sometimes, you know, changes things around, cancels things, yeah. If they make more, and my opinion of one of the following ones changes, you know, I'll strongly consider doing a spoiler-free review of that or those as well. Let's see. I think that does pretty well cover... Yeah, right, the age rating. I want to say they're rated like 9+, certainly this video will be, and... yeah, these are not my favorite Star Wars things. I love a good chunk of the official Star Wars media. I don't think that I'm going to spend very long on just the technical aspect. So that if that is what you're looking for, let me get that out of the way, and you can go find something you're more interested in. By now we pretty much know what to expect from an animated Disney Star Wars show, or in the case of this, you know, 3 miniseries with an overarching theme. You know, there are some differences. Visions, Resistance, and I feel like there's at least one more have a different, you know, or multiple different art styles, but other than that, yeah, you know, this one, you know, actually, I will just briefly, yeah, of the various ones, you know, they tend to have, oh, and Rebels also has different art style from, but yeah, other than that, the Disney ones tend to be similar to, you know, their Clone Wars. You know, they made 2 seasons of Clone Wars, the last 2, seasons 6 and 7. After that, Bad Batch, this... right, Young Jedi Adventures does also have a somewhat different art style, but yeah, other than that, Clone Wars, Bad Batch, and this very similar art style, a slightly refined version of the one from earlier seasons of Clone Wars, you know. And yeah, other than Resistance, this is so far my least favorite animated Star Wars. You know, yeah, and some parts of Resistance I like better than this. Yeah, if this was the first, if nobody had seen Disney make a Star Wars animated show before Tales of the Jedi, I would be saying, you know what? They show promise. I think they can get to a point where they can really knock it out the park. But they did with Season 6 of Clone Wars. You know, the Bad Batch runs laps around this in its sleep. So the technical aspects. It's never less than competent. It looks good, it sounds good, the voice acting is on point. There are ideas here that are really, really cool. And I do want to clarify, I don't think that the people working on Star Wars Tales lack talent. I believe that there's simply some of the people at the top. And I don't want to be too hard on Dave Filoni, because he has given us some amazing stuff, and I definitely don't want to join the dogpiling of Kathleen Kennedy, because I think it's blown way out of proportion. Okay, yeah, some of the Star Wars that she has been in charge of has not been the very best. But she also gave us Andor. I mean, you don't really get to pick and choose. Either she's responsible for all of it, or none of it, and the people who hate her guts apparently think that every time something's bad, it's her fault, and every time something's good in Star Wars recently, it's despite her. Like, I really don't think that makes any sense. I have not seen any evidence that the amazing of Andor, which is basically all of Andor so far, is in spite of her, having so much control. Yeah. There's just, it feels like a boardroom thing to me, like just some people saying, this will do good numbers. Because Disney Star Wars is mired in fan service. I know, only the hottest of takes on this channel. It has been from the start, and there is a certain logic to it. I forget the exact number, but they paid billions of dollars to own Star Wars. They were worried that they would end up with more of like... I'm not sure that ultimately the prequel trilogy was like financially like that it didn't do super well, but there were a lot of people who, hated those. I don't hate them. I think there are great things buried under a lot of not so great things. But I did entire videos talking about all three of those movies, so I'm not going to go too much into it here. But yeah, they wanted a sure thing, and so they've been just going to the same well. It's all member berries all the time, with some exceptions, and that's part of why I'm so happy we have stuff like Visions, because it doesn't feel like yeah, it's not. It's genuinely just not, and some people hate it for that. Like I've watched yeah, the first 2 seasons of yeah, obviously, because season 3 hasn't come out yet. Can hardly wait. I'm practically counting the days. I love seasons 1 and 2. That is not just constantly trying to say, oh, remember Star Wars? Star Wars was cool. It's actually doing interesting things. And that's part of why, because that's the thing. Season 1 of Visions had come out when Tales of the Jedi did. And I think there might have been a compromise there. It might have been like, okay, let's do the daring thing because we gotta get new people into Star Wars. But let's also do the thing that like pats the long-time fans on the head and says, there's still room for you. Yeah. I think I'm just going to move on. But it feels like they're just saying, this is still part of Star Wars, and also remember this character because we're doing something with them. And I appreciate that these are free. I'm not paying for each of these individually. As long as you're subscribed to Disney Plus, you can watch, every single one of the Star Wars shows that are on Disney Plus. You don't have to pay extra for. So sometimes I feel weird criticizing free entertainment, but. And I do also want to acknowledge, I think years ago this would have been like one of those books. Like I remember when The Phantom Menace came out, and I was pretty big on Star Wars. I hadn't, when the prequels first came out, there was a while where I was fairly positive on them. And so yeah, went into a bookstore. I don't know why. I'm kidding. I used to love reading. I mean, I still do. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, there was a Phantom Menace book. So I picked it up. Not sure what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. Because essentially what the book was like reminding you of things that were in the movie, and sometimes like providing additional context to stuff that's not in the movie, because it's, you know, there's not really room for it in the movie. And I didn't end up buying that book. You know, I might have for other stuff. Like, I do have a Spider-Man book that's just like page after page of explaining who the villains are. But that's what this show feels like. And yeah, considering that, I feel bad for these people, the animators and voice actors and all these hard-working people who had to put so much time and effort into this. Their efforts largely unappreciated, you know, going underpaid and overworked. And yeah, like, I'm sorry, this doesn't do very much for the overall, like, there's stuff where it feels like they're just kind of trying to answer questions about canon that didn't really need answering, or at least not, like, yeah, again, it feels overproduced if it's just gonna be, because, like, some of these questions could be answered with, like, one sentence on Wikipedia, and it just, yeah. So the 3 different miniseries are, as you could probably guess from the titles, you know, yeah, the first one focuses on Jedi, the second, characters related to the Empire, and the third one, it's, you know, the kind of bounty hunter, yeah. And with each one, yeah, they pick characters that we care about. And yeah, like, one of the Jedi is Ahsoka, and I am really only familiar with the animated shows and you know, now also live action shows and such. From what I hear, the stuff that's covered in her episodes, which I suppose I'll just briefly talk. So the format is that for all 3 of these, there's 6 episodes that are around 15 minutes each, which stands at this awkward, like, it's slightly too short, it feels. You know, a lot of the, I realized it's perhaps, it's not an ongoing show, so it's, you know, I'm not saying that they had to do 21 minutes, as they usually do for the ongoing, some of the ongoing, you know, but it's just, yeah, it's longer than some of the Visions episodes, but shorter than the ongoing ones, and it just feels slightly awkward for that. Anyway, yeah. All 3 of these, you get a, yeah, for each of them, they have 2 characters that, you know, longtime fans will recognize, and they get 3 episodes, and sometimes there'll be, like, some time jumps between episodes. Sometimes episodes, you know, one episode will end and the next one will pick up immediately where it left off, or you know, more or less. Sometimes years. Anyway, yeah, it feels slightly too short to have enough of an impact to really make it worthwhile. And also, just like, some of the time we get really interesting stories here. I wish that they were telling those stories in a larger context instead of just dipping in for something somewhat inconsequential. Like, some of the time, I believe it is meant to deepen characters, and certainly I did notice that there are choices made. Sometimes they'll, like, bookend one of these arcs, you know, and yeah, they're definitely trying to do something. They're trying to do something artistic on this. Some of these characters have appeared in shows that were centered on other characters, and sometimes they'll only appear for 1 episode. I like their other appearances, with very few exceptions, better than here. And yeah, part of it is, like, when these characters pop up in other character stories, it makes the Star Wars galaxy feel big, interconnected. When they don't, when they just get a story that's slightly awkwardly paced, and, you know, yeah, it just kind of feels like, well, you know, I don't know, we had scraps of a story. It's also, considering how much of Disney Star Wars has been like trying to get longer stories going, it's hard not to feel like this is like stealth pilots. And yeah, I mean, I think I'll like this more in retrospect if it ends up leading to more stories with these characters. There's not a single one of the characters that I don't want a full season of an animated show centering on, you know. The protagonists of these, you know. But if we're not getting that, then this just feels, yeah, like, you know, you don't have to release proof of concept to the public. You can just, you know, bring it to your boss's desk, and they'll either, well, a lot of the time he'll, rather than she'll, because a lot of the people with power are men. They'll either, you know, maybe they'll greenlight it, maybe they'll say it needs work, maybe they'll just toss it, but yeah, it doesn't feel completely incomplete. I'm not proud of that one either, but yeah, it's not quite enough. If what you want from this kind of thing is just, you know, some action scenes, some Star Wars, it's you know, a fix of Star Wars, yeah, it does that. It just doesn't do very much more. But yeah, you know, it has the Star Wars stuff. You know, we've got, you know, in media res stories. We've got classic stories being retold. I just think that, you know, for a lot of these stories, I'd just rather go with a different retelling, in part because of the awkward pacing that could so easily be fixed by other, you know, there's other Star Wars media, especially Disney, where they'll take a really famous story and retell it with a Star Wars, you know, sheen to it, where I really do enjoy, like, this is the kind of thing, let's see, Mandalorian, the Clone Wars, and Bad Batch, you know, would do stuff like that, and because of the ongoing nature, you know, yeah, they I think did better at that than this. Let's see, yeah, you get to see cool planets, vehicles, aliens, robots, gadgets, you know, and they do just enough that, you know, it something I've always really appreciated about Star Wars. There's just enough context that you understand what's going on without having to just be talked at for a really long time. And yeah, they continue to really do well at that. I think that might more or less... Yeah, I mean, I do hope that this ends up just being like Stealth Pilots, the miniseries, and, you know, I'll still not think it was absolutely amazing with this. See, that's also the thing. I do think that the Stealth Pilot for the Bad Batch was substantially better than these, and there wasn't that much more scripted. Like, was that 3 episodes of a season of Clone Wars? I think so, some thereabouts. I don't think it was more than that. Yeah. I think that might just about cover... Yeah. It's... I mean, I'm really glad that, you know, we're not paying extra to watch this. Like, if this had been something that you actually had to pay for, you know, let's see, other than this, I think this might be the one bit of Disney Star Wars where, like, if I had to pay for it, like, that would have felt weird for a show, or several shows in this case, in general, but yeah, like all the other ones, I would have been like, yeah, there was something there that made it worth the money. And yeah, I think that covers everything. Right, I think some of what might also be going on here, like since some of the Ahsoka stuff was covered elsewhere, like it's what, you know, Star Wars canon at this point, it is very much, because they said that they were throwing it all out, but then more recently they've started saying, oh no, this part of Legends is still canon. And now, you know, none of us know exactly what is and isn't. I guess at this point it is just, you know, if they say today that it's canon, then it is. But anything that hasn't been confirmed to still be canon might not be. Yeah, maybe part of what's going on with the Ahsoka stuff. I could, or wait. No, yeah, because they threw out the Legends canon when Disney start. I forget if the I heard somewhere, but there's so much canon to keep track of. I'm not 100% sure if the Ahsoka stuff that is now canonized here was canon before Disney, because Ahsoka did exist as a character. Let's see, I want to say 2007 or 8 thereabouts was when the Clone Wars started airing, you know, so yeah. I think that might be everything. Yeah. I'm at a point in my life where I don't want to hate a piece of media. Certainly don't want to hate any Star Wars media. You know, there's so much to love about Star Wars. Yeah. I don't hate this, but I wish I was much further away from hating it. I mean, if they make more, I'll keep watching. I just, you know, at this point, I'm probably not particularly going to get my hopes up, but if one of them is amazing, yeah, I'll get on camera and I'll say it. Yeah, I think that's everything for this one. Yeah, just... yeah, I think that is it. I had hoped to be able to do this video, you know, yesterday, you know, yeah, as part of celebrating May the 4th. That is when this was released. Ultimately, a little bit too much back pain in order for me to be able to do that, but yeah. Hopefully you were able to score some really cool deals on Star Wars games. I was not. But that's because I've already bought every Star Wars game. Yeah, there's going to be some reviews coming up of some of those, for sure. Yeah, every Star Wars game that has gotten, like, really... that sounds like would be really amazing to play, I've already bought in previous years. Yeah. Now I know how Alexander the Great felt. There were no more deals to score.